we're back. Another episode. It's been a little while since I've done an update on this, so it's about time we get into it. And I'm keen to get this thing done so I can get out and start driving it. So in this episode, I'm going to show you how to fit up a forward-facing plenum on a TB42. And then towards the end of the episode, I'll give an update on where the car's at and sort of how long it's going to take before we're out driving this thing again. So this is just a eBay RB20 forward-facing plenum. You pick them up on eBay for from anywhere from about 150 bucks to a few $100. They're not they're pretty good quality. You can't really knock them, but yeah, they do go good on these TBs. And obviously my wagon's already got one, and yeah, I noticed a massive difference in things like intake temps and just the easy access to the injectors and spark plugs is also a bonus. Yeah, here it is. Doesn't look too, they actually look quite good. No real problems with it out the box. I'd just be checking all the inside of your welds, and where these are all mounted on the inside, they can get a few sort of daggy bits hanging off, so I think there is a couple in there. Just worth going over and just having a quick look. I do have a gasket here, so I'll show you number one thing to do when you're putting these on. So here's a TB gasket lined up over the RB20 holes. All the holes line up as far as the intake ports go. The mounting holes for the bottom half of the intake manifold this is probably the main one. It's sort of half on, half off. That needs to be welded up so you can drill and tap a new one. There's two here that aren't a problem. You can just leave them, and then yeah, you just drill and tap these two to suit. And other than that, everything lines up pretty good. You only just got to make sure when you're drilling and tapping, you're not drilling all the way through this plate. These are only drilled to a depth, they don't go all the way through. Now another issue is with this, I've got a bottom half here, so the 4 ports they do there for vacuum or boost ports. The one on the very left sort of overlaps the bottom half of the intake manifold, and obviously they're drilled all the way through, so you can't get a fitting in that one, obviously, unless you can cut sort of a bit of the bottom half of the intake manifold, or you can just plug that hole up. Either. Yeah, if you cut it off, you can put a fitting in it, or you just plug it up, and I've found that three ports is enough, so suit yourself. But yeah, that's another issue. Now the next small issue is the idle control valve bracket. As you can see, it's quite close to the injector rail. Now on the one that's on my wagon, it was actually worse because the bracket was vertical there, where this is sort of leaned back a little bit, so you got a little bit more room with this one, but you can still see that if you had the idle control valve there, it would be hitting the injector rail. So on my wagon, and what you'd have to do with this one is probably you could just grind the bottom of the idle control valve off, and that should be good enough. I've done it, and what I actually did was I had to grind the edge of this off so I could pull the injector rail in and out without pulling the intake manifold off. But because this is going on the race car, I don't actually run an idle control valve, so I'll probably just make a plate for that, or use the other plate I've already got. Just bolt it on there because I don't actually run one. You could get a spacer plate made up and space the intake manifold up a little bit, but if you're going to go through that outfit, you may as well make your own intake manifold. So yeah, there's just a couple issues that you'll find when you fit one of these up, but I'll show you the one that's fitted on my wagon, and I'll show you how it fits under the bonnet of a sort of normal car. If for whatever reason you grind a little bit too much off and you don't use this bolt hole, it has to be plugged up, and I just ran a bit of gasket glue on the inside of this flange here, so because if you leave sort of a bolt hole open, or you can't get the bolt in, boost actually comes out between the flange and out the bolt hole, so you'll have a boost leak. So yeah, make sure you plug that up, or yeah, run a bit of gasket glue around the inside, seal it up. So this is what the one on my wagon looks like. It is quite tight on the battery, if you can see that. I did have to modify my battery tray. As you can see, I've sort of it's all moved over. It is pretty tight, but it's not overly bad. The only real problem is the throttle body hits on the battery, so you either have to run a smaller battery or modify your battery tray to suit. But other than that, yeah, intercooler piping's easy to do, and I noticed a huge difference with intake temperatures. One of the cold mornings the other morning, the intake temps will sit between 0 and 2 degrees, and it definitely wouldn't have achieved that with the intercooler piping going past the exhaust manifold side. So it is a good improvement. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'll go see Jesse, and he can weld up them 2 holes, and then I'll drill and tap the ones that need to be done. And I did run a straight edge over the flange, and I'm not overly happy with how flat it is either, so that's another thing to check. So once it's all welded up, I'll knock the welds back with a flapper wheel, and then I'll take it down to the local machine shop, and he can put a nice flat face on it, and then yeah, we'll fit it up next weekend and finish off the video. Right, job done. I'll take it to the machine shop tomorrow night, and we'll finish this video when I get it back. Alright, so finally I've got the intake manifold back. It come up pretty good actually, and surprisingly he had to take nearly 3 mil off it, so it's definitely worth checking the surface, because the gasket would definitely have not picked up 3 mil. So to save you a little bit of pain, I've already pulled it off. Wasn't that difficult on this car. On a normal car it's a little bit more tricky, but I do have the intake manifold here, and I'll give you a couple of hot tips when you're pulling it off. That's a bolt pattern from underneath. These are all pretty easy to see across the front. These are pretty easy to see underneath, but don't forget there's one sneaky one. If you can see that, it's actually pretty hard to, you actually can't see it from the top. You have to sort of feel along, and yeah, see if you can get a 1/4 inch drive up there, because 1/2 inch drive won't fit up there. All your looms are bolted along the front here, the loom that goes down to the starter motor and gearbox and that, and your dipstick's bolted on there as well. So you have to undo all that, pull the battery out, and it is a little bit tricky to get to all these, but it's not too bad when you get everything out of your way. So as you can see from the top, you know, all these front ones are pretty easy to see, but that sneaky one in between number 2 and 3 is way up in there, and you can't feel it, you can't really see it, so don't forget about that one. And yeah, obviously along the front here, I think there's a heater hose bracket, and that bolts onto your ear, and then there's earths actually bolt on the top here. Couple little 6 mil bolts there. Obviously idle control valve, pull that off. Throttle body's got to come off anyway, and this hose here, obviously I blocked it off, but this goes down to like a cold start air control valve, and everything to do with this hose. I think it's got some coolant lines running through, like underneath all the intake manifold. Anything to do with this hose, and it plumbs back up into your intake from factory. It can all go. There's a little 2-wire plug that goes to it as well. Cut that off and neaten it all up, and you can pull everything off underneath the intake manifold, and it just cleans everything up under there. Better access to oil filters and yeah, your hoses and that under there. So it just cleans it all up, and less stuff to go wrong. And realistically, anywhere in Australia, you don't need it. So yeah, that's another thing. Get rid of that. Anything to do with that hose. And there is one bolt that comes from the top factory, so it's threaded into the bottom. Now obviously you have to drill that out, and the bolt has to come from the bottom when you're fitting that plenum, because yeah, obviously all the bolts coming from underneath. So yeah, that's as easy as it is to pull off. Well, it's not really that easy, but yeah, it is a bit tricky, especially this bolt at the back. I think there's your heater hoses and that in the firewall, and your clutch cylinders here. So it is a little bit tricky for that back one too. Yeah, fuel hoses end up bolting there, like this, the return end up bolting on that bottom bit. Because yeah, obviously there's nowhere to bolt to the top, because I think it bolts here, factory. So yeah, bend that down, bend that all down, bolt it to there. All right, now to the new manifold. Like I said, I've already blocked this off. I just painted it black, just because, yeah, the shiny chrome look didn't really look that good under the bottom of that thing. So yeah, I just painted it black for now. Eventually it gets ceramic coated, but yeah, like I said earlier, I've blocked mine off. I'm not actually running the idle control valve. So yeah, like I said earlier, there's a couple different options what you can do there. Obviously throttle body bolts up, yeah, bracket, throttle cable bracket. This thread in the end here is 16 mil. Yeah, it's a bit of a not very good size, so 16 mil to 3/8 adapter I got, 3/8 to 3/8 barb. I've got to get a 91 though, not a straight. Two of these are 1/8, the end one's 1/4 inch, and yeah, these bolt holes are 8 mil, so yeah, you need an 8 by 1.25 tap. And when you're tapping the thread, because the tap is tapered at the end, it won't tap a thread all the way to the bottom of the hole. So your best bet is to get like a spare 8 mil bolt, cut a couple vertical cuts in the thread, make like a makeshift tap, so you can run the bolt all the way to the bottom, clean the threads out, run the bolt all the way to the base of the hole, so you've got a thread. Otherwise you may find that the bolt will bind up before it's actually tight, and you'll think it's tight under here, but yeah, it won't be. It'll be bind up because the thread's not fully cut into the hole. And another thing is to check the length of your bolts. Now it's easy for me because I had a spare one of these on the shelf, so what I'm going to do is actually bolt it to this first and make sure all the bolts pull down hard before I put it on the car. But yeah, what I will do is chuck all the bolts in finger tight, or not even finger tight, just sort of wind them in, and then just do them up one by one, so you know that they go tight. So do one up and then you can feel it go tight, so undo it and then do up the next one and go around like that, and do them all up just to make sure that, yeah, your bolt isn't bottoming out in the hole before it pulls down on the gasket. Otherwise that will also create some issues. All right, so what I found is, if you can see that, they're all a fair bit long, maybe 5 mil long. Only that one was the only good one on the one behind here. But yeah, they're all about, I don't know, call it 4 or 5 mil long. So I don't like cutting down bolts, especially into aluminium. Ideally you should go and get a new set of bolts, go and measure them all up and go buy a heap of bolts, but I want this done today, so I'm just going to pack a couple extra, another spring washer and then another flat washer. Bit dodgy, but it's the way it goes. So yeah, I don't really think I've forgotten anything, but I'll save you the pain, and I'll muck around with this and bolt it up, and then yeah, I'll do a couple little things I've got to do, bolt it up, and then we'll have a look when it's all bolted up. All right, well, job done. Bolted up. Come up not too bad. A couple little things, just fuel line. I need to get a 90 on the end here so I can run the fuel line underneath the pressure reg. 90 for the vacuum canister hose back there, and yeah, other than that, relatively straightforward. Another thing, when you're doing this, you can just undo the 2 bolts either side of this master cylinder, and you you can slip the master cylinder off and out of the way. You get your hand in there a little bit better for this back one, because even though there's not much in this car, it's still a little bit tricky for this back one. With this throttle body too, it has like factory coolant lines here, where the coolant from the factory runs through the throttle body. I just cut them off, just cleans it up a little bit. And there's a little vacuum port just here, it's like a 4mm hose that goes on that. I just blocked it up and cut it off too, because you don't need it, and yeah, it just makes it look a little bit better. So came pretty good. And you might be able to see how tight this flange is to the injector rail, so it is a bit of a problem, that. Not as bad as my other car, but yeah, still a problem. But yeah, there's still a lot more to clean. You know, I've got to clean up a lot of the hoses, you know, reroute me water meth stuff, and just generally clean up a lot of the hoses and that. So it should look good once it's done. All right, well, now that's pretty much installed. I'll give you a quick rundown on where the car's at, and pretty much what's left to do, basically. So starting at the front, like bars painted, winch has been serviced, so the bars are right to go back on. Obviously a bit of cooler pipe in here, methanol jets in there, air temp sensor, a couple little things like that. But the front's pretty much done, other than yeah, headlights and whatever else. Hopefully there's enough light in here. So the wiring's nearly done. Most of it's nearly done. It just needs a finish off a couple of things, like Haltech dash going in. So a couple of things to finish off, and then just yeah, wrap it all up, neaten it all up. And yeah, coming to the back, I've still got to paint all this. Tank's mounted for that's a methanol tank, so that's mounted. I've got a new roof scoop sitting there, I just got to put that together. Yeah, so roof scoop welded on, I'll paint all this and then basically put it back together, and then yeah, sound deadening, finishing that off, and that's pretty much it, I think. I just got to chase up when it's going on the dyno, and apart from, I'm sure a few things I've missed, a couple of little things missed, it should be right to go. So hopefully maybe the next video might see it on the dyno, or maybe the one after, and then yeah, as soon as it's done on the dyno, we'll be out test driving it. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, as usual, if you made it this far, don't forget to drop a like, drop a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And yeah, if you want to head over, find me on Instagram. I do post a little bit on there. But yeah, other than that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.